the Secret Invasion series review. I'm going to let you start. I want to hear your thoughts on it, and then I'll go after you.
Let me Google the definition of mid. Hold on, let me see. Uh, okay. Google said Secret Invasion is a good example of the definition of mid because that's exactly what it was. Every single episode was middle of the road. It was just absolutely just monotonous. And I don't really go hard. If anyone that knows me, I'm the type of person that tries to see the positive in anything I watch. I get hate on it. A lot of people are like, oh, tear it down. No, this sucked. No, I'm like, no, I like this. I'm not looking to hate something, but I was really excited for Secret Invasion because they teased it as a return to that Winter Soldier feel. The
It
trailers
sure
teased
did.
as this spy espionage and all this paranoia, spy espionage, action thriller. There was no spy work. There was no espionage work. There was no paranoia because they revealed every scroll from the first episode. There was nothing thrilling about what was
Mm,
going on. And the biggest letdown was just Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson's performance. It just felt super lethargic in every single episode. I feel like Nick Fury felt very serious in the moments that we got from before, and he always felt like a step ahead. And they even mentioned it here, whereas like like you seem like you're steps behind, and I kept waiting for him to
mm.
go, "Aha, I'm not," and that never
Right.
came. He
Yeah.
literally was just keeping up with the villains at all times. And
Mm.
I love Sam Jack. He's one of the goats. He's one of the greatest of all time. He's been in 1,000 movies, and probably half of them
More
are
movies
good.
than anybody. Yep.
Yeah. And but it's just this was disappointing, and it's just a thing of like maybe he was just too old to star in a series. They should have had a younger co-star with him the whole time, maybe that could have performed the action, that could have performed the exciting stuff that he was training. Maybe even Isaiah Bradley from Falcon and Winter Soldier. And this is how he becomes Patriot. They could have maybe did that to have things balanced, but within the show itself they had so much potential. Him having a personal story with Skrulls, his wife being one, and all that stuff that it did there, but they just never capitalized on making those exciting. There was just no excitement. There was nothing like I don't need every show or MCU thing to affect the greater universe, but Secret Invasion
Hmm.
has to. Like
Yeah.
that's the one that should be affecting the greater universe. And it just was like, oh yeah, Rhodey's a scroll. And cool. A C
Were you
minus.
like me in that you called that from the trailer? Because I called that from the trailer.
For some reason I didn't. I was just like, oh cool, Rhodey's in here. It's gonna be a two-hander. They're gonna be setting up armor wars while also that's what I thought was happening. But then when the first
Yeah.
episode came and he started acting up, I was like, oh yeah, that's not Rhodey.
Yeah. I called it from the trailer because a few things. One, there was no one else in this show of note other than like obviously Maria Hill and Talos or Talos, however you guys want to pronounce it. I'm gonna let you live your life because they pronounce it differently throughout the show, and I kept thinking
Yes,
I
they
was
do.
wrong, but then someone else would say it different. And the only other person other than Nick was Rhodey, and it was like, well, if someone's going to be the surprise scroll, it's probably going to be Rhodey because the whole thing of Secret Invasion is like, who is it? It's not going to be farmhand number two. You know what I mean? That's not going to help
Yeah.
anybody. It's funny because retroactively, I agree with you because I had a different experience watching the show. I
Okay.
enjoyed every single episode until this last one, right? So I thought it had the spy stuff with all the espionage, like they were chasing each other. Like in like a lot of espionage movies, they be chasing each other, but they be kind of like briskly walk chasing.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of that in the first
Cutting through
episode,
corners
uh,
and stuff like that.
right? And just like looking, and then somebody always comes around the corner and they got the gun. And even like with the terrorist attack in the first one by Gravik, we'll get to him in a little bit. My first reaction to the first episode was, "Oh snap! There's really consequences in the show." Maria Hill died. There was an explosion. People actually died. This wasn't a MCU situation where all these explosions happened, these buildings fell. but nothing, no one
No
got hurt somehow.
casualties.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause it's like, yeah, like we blew up Sokovia, but no one died. It was like, how, Sway? Like, how is that possible? But obviously in Civil War, we found out that a kid did that. But so I was having fun with it. I was even having fun with the shaftness uh of Nick Fury. It's like, even when I'm out, I'm in. Like, I was having so much fun with all of that. And I think the thing that made it fun for me the most was watching all of these talented actors and actresses play off of each other. Every scene with Samuel Jackson and Don Cheadle was golden. Like, they were acting their asses off. Every scene with Ben Mendelsohn and Samuel Jackson was great. The what, what did Nick Fury say? Tell me something I don't know. Like, that was
Yeah.
fun. Like, I was having a really good time with all that stuff. Yeah, and it was just, and Kingsley Benadir, who plays Gravik, I thought his performance was phenomenal throughout the show. Now we get to the end. What the was that? Like, for me, it's the most egregious ending to any Disney Plus show I've seen, because it was like, I know that you had a different experience watching it through, but I was enjoying it. It was so bad. I'm trying to think of like what the most egregious thing is. The most egregious thing was how they handle and resolve Grout, because he was such a great character throughout this entire show. For him to just be dusted off like that, for one, he could have been a character that lasted quite some time, because he's a great actor. I'm kind of tired of these shows hiring these great actors and then just throwing them to the wayside. Who knows if they want to continue to do it or whatever. So there's all types of behind the scenes stuff with that. But he was phenomenal. You can argue that he was the best actor in this show. I honestly, I think I would give that to Don Cheadle, but you could argue that he was the best performer in the show. They built up such an emotional, even the speech, right? The speech in the last episode, when he's talking to who he thinks is Nick about his pain and all the things that he went through, and the promise of finding a new home, expressing almost like a kid who's disappointed in his father, like a
Hmm.
father figure, or that to just turn out to be Emilia Clarke's Gaia. It just kind of left me feeling flat. It didn't feel good, because you have this character who's expressing himself this way, and it's all for naught. So he never got a resolution at all. He just up and died, right? And then Nick Fury just goes over and like saves the president. It just felt so like, it
So
was
safe.
unsatisfying. So safe. That's a great word for it. And you know what highlights the safety of it is, what do people do after every MCU episode? They speculate, right? He's on the phone at the end of episode 5, and the speculation throughout the week is, who's he talking to, right? Who did he call? He called Gaia? Nigga, you could have told us that in the 5th episode. And I also have this last thing I'll say, we can get more into a discussion about it. I don't think that this show would have gotten the backlash that it's getting right now if they didn't make the last episode a separate episode. If this series was 5 episodes and they just attached the 6th episode to
Oh,
this last
and
part,
made it
maybe,
long. Yeah.
yeah, just made it a long episode, maybe it would have been a little less. Because what happened is, you made us wait a week for this episode that
And
was
we think it's a surprise is
mid,
coming.
right, and we think a surprise is coming, all this stuff like that. So the momentum would have carried through that episode, and I feel like it would have made much more sense for the hoodwink to happen, for Gravik to really be talking to Gaia. Now, I don't know how that science works in my head, like if it's a week later, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like it carrying that momentum would have been a little different than anticipating this big finale at the end and doing the same thing that the Disney Plus has been doing for a while, which is the finale. Everybody speculates, oh, is it going to be an hour? Is it going to be 45 minutes? No, it's typically the shortest episode of the season. And you're like,
Yeah.
what is that? Why is that the finale? Right? Yeah. Any other thoughts on my thoughts about this?
I don't know how they spent $200 million on the show. I don't see where it went.
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna
I
be
see
honest.
that. Oh yeah, we should definitely talk about Gaia. Just, I have a anyway. So I hear that, right? But my challenge to that, and this is weird for me to be defending the show. A movie is typically an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, and if you're stretching it, or if you're Martin Scorsese, 4 hours, right? So a $212 million for a 2 hour movie is very different from $212 million for a 6-ish hour movie, right? Because you have more craft services, you have more days set, you have You have a lot more editing and all this other stuff because you're dealing with 6 hours of content as opposed to like 2 or 3, right? So
Mhm.
I think that what happens is that money gets spread out over the course of 6 episodes, right? And then you have the marketing for each individual episode. So I can see where that $212 stretches. However, it wasn't good. So
My only issue
um,
is that, Rings of Power on Prime Video was 10 million an episode, and it did 7
whew,
episodes, so that's what, $70 million. That show
mm,
looks better than the show.
mm,
Show
that's a good
is
point.
it goes more places. The
That's a
action
good point.
sequence, especially in those last 2 episodes, were amazing. I know people don't like that show for whatever reason. There's, people like
Yeah.
me that do, but
Hmm.
it just is a better show to me in terms of the quality of it, the way it's made, costumes, reactions to stuff happening. The fact that when what's his name, Talos dies, and
Yeah.
then the reaction he has, and then he shoots Gravik, and it's like almost the same thing. Like they used like the same take twice almost. I just
Okay.
I whoever they put behind the creative was really the problem, because
Mhm.
the I'm looking at the direction and how things are directed and how things are writing. Like I'm very, very negative, and I want to say that like the show is okay. Like I don't hate it. I'm just gravely disappointed, and I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But
I'm
Don Cheadle,
disappointed by the ending.
like Don Cheadle, was great throughout the series.
Yeah, he acted his ass
I
off.
think Amelia Clark was really good, playing
Yeah.
conflicted Skrull who's switching back and forth and trying to figure out what she was to do, and maybe underutilized a bit or something like that. People were praising Olivia Colman a lot. I thought she was okay. I didn't think that she
I
blew
thought
me
she
away or
was
anything
good.
like that.
I thought a lot of episodes she carried.
Yeah, yeah. She was the most fun character. She was having the most fun out of everybody. Maria Hill, this should have been her show. This should have been the show where Kobe Smulders finally got to do something,
Hmm.
and they killed her off and
And
fridged her.
she got to die. It was what she got to do.
They fridged her, and I was just like, "We're
Yeah.
still fridging
Yeah.
people?" And what makes it
Yeah.
worse is that she got fridged, and then he still didn't get to revenge her. So what did she get fridged for?
Right. He wasn't even the one who took care of Gravik.
It's just bad, right? I could even go like,
Yeah.
"Damn, let's go. He got her revenge." You know, have that
Yeah. Yeah.
cathartic feeling. It's just like I don't care that you just killed the scroll that was Don Cheadle. Like you saved this
Also, the
president that's not going to be here anymore because he's going to get replaced in Captain America 4. Like,
also like the other thing is nothing got resolved, right? The whole conflict of Nick being like, I never got these people a home, I never was able to fulfill my promise. Like they had this whole thing in episode 2 about the promise is such and such and such. He just kills Gravik, gets killed, he saves the president, and he hops back on the ship and goes back up to space. What did he solve? What did he do?
make things worse.
He made things worse because now all these scrolls are being hunted. All these scrolls are being hunted by the president. So he basically did the same thing he did after Endgame, which was, oh shit, there's a big problem. Let me dip off. Right when he comes back home and another Gravik type shows up, who's he going to blame for that other than himself? In the end,
And that part really is like a letdown because it's like he came to stop the problem. He made the problem worse. He gets his wife and goes back up to the space station. And it's just like the more I talk about it,
yo, is literally one of those, right? So speaking of the more you talk about it, the worse it gets. Let's talk about how Nick Fury said in his mind, this is what I need to do. I need to gather up all the Avengers DNA
oh my
and
god,
not keep them separate. No, I need to combine them and put them in one place just for someone to steal.
I just
Why?
feel like
Why would you
Nick
do that?
Fury would not do that.
Yeah, you're just out here doing stuff.
It didn't make any sense for him to create a cocktail that someone could just use, drink, or do anything and have every single hero that was at Endgame. Are you nuts? That's like a
Yeah,
hundred magicians, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, all the
yeah,
Guardians, the
yeah.
Ravagers. Like what?
And now
Thanos.
think about this for a second. I don't know what Gaia knows, right? But I'm going to assume that she hasn't met any of these people. How
No,
does she just know to use their powers? Like when she puts Gravik to sleep, it's like sleep. You don't just instinctively know to do that just because you grew an antenna. Now I know we're
no.
nitpicking at this point, but it's kind of like, how would you even know to do that? Anyway, so
It's a
I don't
valid
want to.
nitpick, and I feel like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
could have started I don't know. It's just
Grounded, yes,
frustrating
because
'cause
he
so much
studied.
potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was preparing for this for his basically not his whole life, but for a long
Well,
time.
you know what? Because Guy was with him, that might be the reason. Because she
Might
was
be possible.
his right hand girl. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
it's
might be the
possible.
reason. Yeah. So maybe that
Still, just for
nitpick is
you
a
to
little
get the
nitpicky.
powers and sort through 17 powers and figure out Mantis's power like that, it's just
The
I
little
don't know.
Drax baby arm, the little Drax baby
Oh
arm.
my, the
She looked like
tattoos
Jack
on it.
Jack from Incredibles. Yeah.
For her to have the tattoos on it, and then when he uses, homeboy from, Infinity War, Moth what's his name again?
Uh, yo, I was trying so hard to remember his name during
Oh,
the
it's not
gosh,
one
the
of,
magician guy,
yeah, one of
Ebony
Thanos'
Maw,
children,
Ebony Maw.
Ebony Maw, like, he
Yeah,
gets the
yeah,
rings, and I'm just like, "Bro, these are attachments. These are not
right,
in their
right.
DNA."
They is just out here doing stuff.
It's just
But yeah,
lazy.
so at the end of the day, Secret Invasion
What would you rate
solved
it?
nothing. God, that's a tough question because, like I said, I was enjoying it all the way up until the end. Um, if we're doing like 5 stars, like I would probably do like 2.5 out of 5. I can't even get it to 3. Uh, is it a below average show? I think so, only because you could have not watched the show and nothing happened, right? Other than the scroll, like you could have found out from a new screen in another movie that the scrolls were discovered and under attack. We could have met Gaia in another movie. We could have met Olivia Colman in another movie. You know what I mean? And I think the only thing that would have been different is meeting Vara, um, Furry's wife, who let's give some flowers to that actress because she was
Yeah,
phenomenal throughout the
she did a
show.
great job.
Um, yeah, and Rhodey being rescued. Which do you buy into this? Like he's been a scroll since Civil War thing? Because I don't think I can, only because it's dumb. That's literally the only reason why why I can't.
But why is it dumb? That's like the whole scroll. That's what the exciting thing was. Is like when did they switch?
Right.
Um,
It's yeah, I guess so. It's just you. I want to believe that Rhodey was there for Infinity War and Endgame, and
and Tony's
that's
death.
it. And Tony's death and all that stuff. I want to believe that he was there for all that. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, but after that, he could have got switched out before Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's totally fine. He wasn't walking with a brace in that show at all. So
mm,
um, that would have been fine to me. But I guess you're right. It is the idea of it is like this person's been replaced for a long time. It does make me a little bit more curious for Armor Wars because a large part of it is going to deal with him reconciling that he's been out of the picture for a long time. But yeah, what did
yeah.
you do?
Not
You
only
buy
that, reconciling that his
into
best
that?
friend is dead, and then he has to fix his
Oh
problem.
my god! Yeah,
So he has to reconcile for the fact that he's in a new world because years have passed since Civil War, like a lot of years. And then he has to reconcile that Tony's gone. And then on top of that, Armor Wars is about Tony's stuff getting into the wrong hands. So not only is he grieving his fresh friend that dead that he didn't even get to see happen, have any understanding of what happened, he has now to
right.
fix this problem that Tony has left him. I think
Yeah,
that could be great,
yeah,
depending on who has it, but it still does suck on the other
yeah,
side of it, you know?
yeah. So yeah, so I'll we should wrap this up here.
Yeah.
Let's read some comments because I'm sure people have been talking about it. And
Mhm.
yeah, let's get to it. Da, 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 so Jason Entertainment says this show was the most disappointing because it had so much potential and never went there. I agree.
Mhm.
I think Jason also says I think this show doesn't have a heart in this show. I unfortunately agree. Preston reviews. What's up, man? What's up, Preston? How you feeling, man? Thank you for
Hey,
joining
Preston.
by or stopping by. Um, Jason Entertainment also says, I think Nick and Talos' friendship was starting to be the heart of the show, but nope, didn't go there either. I agree.
Mhm.
Octavia said spoilers. Sorry if we didn't give a spoiler warning, but everything we're going to be talking about today is going to be full spoilers.
Yeah.
Um, that includes Barbie, Oppenheimer, and I think that's the only other things that we're going over today.
In
Um,
terms of
Preston
reviews,
says,
yeah.
yeah, Preston review says I liked it up till the finale episode, but the finale episode sucked. I agree. Did you see that Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 13%?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Preston also said I also didn't like how Nick saved the president and didn't get Talos. I agree big time with that. It looked like he had enough time to go back and get Talos. But I guess saving the president is kind of the thing.
I think that's
Um,
more of a directing fault than the story.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Also, I don't want to keep getting into it, but because of how badly the show ended, the deaths of the show with Talos and Maria Hill, they just feel wasted. Right? They just
Yeah, because
feel,
it's like, I would like to
yeah,
see them move on to other stuff, and now
right,
they're gone and for no reason.
yeah. Let's see. Screens End review says the whole season felt like an episode one. Huh, that's an interesting take. I had to think more about that. It does feel like I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Don't know if I disagree with that. Let's see. Did you hear that Preston says, did you hear that the director said Rhodey has been a scroll since the end of Civil War? Yeah, we just talked about that. I have a hard time. But the thing is, if the director said it, then yeah. Screens that Screens that 200 mil, someone's getting fired. Uh, Possibly. And Jason Entertainment says, for me, the standouts were Gravik, Talos, and Don Cheadle. I feel like the show was too cheap in the direction, the writing at some times, and locations. There was fantastic dialogues, not always though. Coleman was great too. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, man. So that's our Secret Invasion series review discussion. Um, yeah, hopefully. I don't know what to hope for going forward with the MCU, but yeah, yeah. And I'm not a negative person when it comes to this stuff, but when you kind of get these, I think specifically it's with the shows because the movies for me are up and down, but their ups are really high and their downs aren't that low. So it's kind of like.